No Trump. No KKK, no fascist USA. No Trump. No KKK, no fascist USA. We support J20 resistance.
They're our brothers, they're our sisters.
We support J20 resistance.
They're our brothers, they're our sisters.
We support J20 resistance.
They're our brothers, they're our sisters.
I think that the trial of the J20 defendants is going to be a bellwether for the right to protest in the Trump era. The prosecution is asserting that simply because people assembled together under an anti-capitalist, anti-fascist banner and wore black, they can all be held collectively responsible for the actions of unknown individuals who may have broken a window or engaged in some form of property destruction. And I think it's very dangerous. This sets a very dangerous precedent that is already being followed in other parts of the country, where legislatures are considering legislation that would make protesters liable for property damage during protests, make protesters liable for blocking roads and highways, things like that.
The government is trying to escape the requirements that years of legislation and litigation have put on their police forces. For example, requirements that the police must give warnings before they can use force on a political demonstration, and restrictions on their ability to arrest people en masse. It seems the government wants to push the envelope as far as it thinks it can get away with in terms of prosecuting dissent and attacking protesters for exercising their rights to speak up against an exploitive, capitalist, racist, sexist, transphobic, homophobic system. And the government's doing everything it can to push back on the people doing that in the most hypocritical way possible.
And one of the police commanders, Commander DeVille, had a audio recording that's played very early on in court, basically saying that as a commander, he'd already decided to arrest everybody before they left Logan Circle. And that is not surprising. That is how things work. That is what they do. They say, we're going to call this gathering a criminal gathering. We're going to call it a riot. We're going to call it whatever we need to in order to justify our police operations and our operations to suppress dissent and restrict people's freedom of movement and association.
Everyone should be really concerned about the theory that the prosecutors seem to be putting down in the prosecution, basically saying that political organizing is conspiracy, and that any kind of resistance to dominant systems of oppression, capitalism, Trump, all these sorts of things are inherently criminal activity. The prosecutor has been saying that people took to the streets with criminal intent on January 20th and has described them as a sea of black masks, and has not talked about how the police were out there in battalions with the riot gear and deployed lots of chemical weapons, lots of projectile weapons, injured lots of people. Is not talking about all those things that are actually part and parcel of state repression, and instead has been trying to vilify our comrades and trying to lock them up for 60 years or more.
She says there's a conspiracy, and she's right. There's a conspiracy, and it started when the police decided, before the protesters even left Logan Circle, that they were going to arrest them. The conspiracy continued on when the police rounded up 234 people in an unconstitutional, indiscriminate mass arrest based solely on their proximity to an alleged crime and based on the fact that they were participating in a protest.
Black women matter here.
Black women matter here.
Black women matter here.
Black women matter here.
Black trans, they 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 matter here.
Black lives, they matter here.
Black lives, they matter here.
We defend J20 resistance.
They're our brothers, they're our sisters.
We defend J20 resistance.
They're our brothers, they're our sisters.
Well, I think for the most part, people who disagree tend to be people who have personal problems with the quote-unquote left, but at the same time will defend the hell out of the Constitution. And it's the Constitution that allows us to do this, and no matter what the issue is, if you allow state repression or you continue to support politicians and city officials that support repression against dissent, you're only shooting yourself in the foot, and then it means that your quote-unquote patriotism is a farce. You're a fake.